The 4 shiurim we learned just now, right? 1, 2, 3, 4 shiurim. I talked about mitzvahs versus Ahavas Hashem and Yiras Hashem, and even versus learning Torah, which is not a Libud Hilchos. The next 2 shiurim are juxtaposing mitzvahs against Neshamas Yisrael. It's a new inyan. It's going to sound like he's repeating mamish the same inyan, but it's a new sugya. He's no longer talking about mitzvahs versus Torah and Ahavas Hashem and Yiras Hashem. He's talking about Neshamas Yisrael. As it turns out, he's going to speak about Ahavas Hashem and Yiras Hashem again. You'll see. It sounds almost the same, but l'cha'ed it's a different sugya. Before he was talking about the difference in the avodah, and now he has a new kasha. This is how I understand it, but I hope you guys understand that this is my own understanding. Obviously, I looked in the Shura B'Sefer Tanya, and I looked in the original Tanya too. But to say it, you have to understand, what is this whole mile of mitzvahs predicated on? What's the yesod of this mile of mitzvahs? That mitzvahs come from Kalim, and Torah comes from Meir. The mitzvah is nimshach and gashmias, and Torah remains in ruchnis. Therefore, you're mashal Muslim hos, you're mavara birurim, which you don't have so much in Torah, right? On this basis, you have a gavaldik kasha. The Neshamas Yisrael also come from Kalim. And if when you're doing a mitzvah, you're mashal lakus Muslim hos, a yid by himself is also Muslim hos. If it comes from Kalim, it's a Muslim hos of lakus and biyah. So, if you will, you could say the question very simplistically: what do you need mitzvahs b'chlal? You are Mahus Musav Alakus. And the emissaries. This kasha the Alter Rebbe asks in the Chuti Amorim and Sefer Shalbeinim, Perek Dalet, where he talks about the neshama, and he asks the question not clearly but implicitly. It's not befedish, but it's mashma. Why do you need Torah and mitzvahs? You're neshama the Chelek HaMimal Mamish. Why do you have to have mitzvahs to make it vekes to the Eibishter? And of course the Torah says you're in a Neshama, maybe a Chelek HaMimal Mamish, but the way it comes down here, it's Behelim. And Torah and mitzvahs are the Kus Begilu even down here. So therefore you have to have Torah and mitzvahs to Megal the Mal of the Neshama. You follow? No. Right? The same is going to be the Nakuda here. The Kasha is, L'chaira, Neshamas are also Kalim. And the Neshamas are also Kalim. They have the Mile of Muslim Hus. Why do you have to have mitzvahs ma'asis? This is the Kasha. No?
Mitzvahs don't reveal, they don't reveal godliness. If you do a mitzvah,
it does. You don't see it.
But just like our neshamas, we don't see it.
No, there's a difference. There's a very, very big difference. The difference is, when you do a physical mitzvah, you've created godliness in this world that is here. The godliness of your neshama, even from the perspective of the neshama, is hidden. You don't see the godliness of a mitzvah, but the Eibusha does. A tzaddik does. L'asad lava, you'll see it. The godliness of your neshama, l'asad lava, as it is right now, you're not going to see it either. It's going to be a very, very late stage when the roles are going to be reversed and the neshama is going to have a mile over Torah mitzvahs, right? And then if you're unfamiliar with this, let me share this with you. There's going to be a later stage when there's going to be a mile in the goof over the neshama. Not only is the neshama going to be higher than Torah and mitzvahs, the neshama never spent a goof. But now it's not that way. Now a Jew needs mitzvahs because the mitzvahs are l'kus begila and the neshama is l'kus behel, and that's going to be the nekudas abiyah. Now, the way again, it's hard to read this because of the way that Alter Rebbe wrote the Seder, Zera Shvera Seder. But he's going to mention, amongst other things, a juxtaposition between neshamas and malachim. Malachim are ruchnius, and the neshamas are gufnius. In other words, malachim come sort of from oiris, and the neshamas are sort of from kalim. And that's really the essence of his question. If the neshamas are from kalim, why do you have to have Torah and mitzvahs? And that is going to be because right now a neshama cannot reveal that milah. And because right now the neshama is not going to be that milah, the neshama needs mitzvahs. And he's going to repeat 4 milas. 4 reasons why neshamas Yisrael need to have mitzvahs ma'asiyos. Again, assuming that my introductory approach, assuming what I just told you is correct, he's going to give you 4 reasons why right now a neshama needs to have mitzvahs, although be'etzem a neshama is also even kalim and mahus lamahus. 2 lines from the bottom of the base. V'eidzei, moreover. Again, now we're no longer comparing mitzvahs to Torah and Ahavas Hashem Yiras Hashem, we're comparing mitzvahs to neshamas Yisrael. The moreover, the truth of the matter is that there's 4 reasons a neshama needs to do mitzvahs, even though the neshama comes from Kalim. And the first one is habirurim, because when you do mitzvahs, you're Eisek in birurim. The neshama by itself is maybe a lakus, but there's no connection to klipa. When you do mitzvahs, since connected to physical things, and physical things have klipa, so you can be magal the shadish of the klipa, which is higher than shadish kedusha. which is Shebebiyah, which only takes place in the lower worlds. Meirapach, right? By releasing the 288 sparks, Ayadei Teiro mitzvahs, by learning Teiro, doing mitzvahs, by Machshava Dibur Amaisa, in thought, speech, and deed. Says Rebbe, are Geveyim B'Sharshan, they're higher in their root, Minaran Sheba, from the neshama of a person. Kihein, because those sparks come misag, which means from Tayu. Shebepnim Yisak, which comes from a deeper madrege in Ak, and he calls it in other places Achap, Eisen Chayzen Ped. Bechol and Ak, there's three closed madreges. The lowest madrege is called Metzach, the forehead, and Ma, Atzilus, comes from Metzach. Tayu comes from Achap, Eisen Chayzen Ped, because at least there's holes, so the Chayz goes in. And the highest madrege of Ak is called Einayim of Ak, the eyes of Ak, which are going to be mentioned on the next page. Okay? But the neshama of a Jew, since the neshama of a Jew, although it comes from Kelim, but it's already perfect, it's Ayidei Ma, it's only from the madrega of Ma, and Hu Yetzim Yametzach, which comes only from the forehead of Ak, which is Hara B'Yalma, which is only a shine. So the first reason you need a neshama, although you yourself come from Kelim, the first reason you need mitzvahs, even though your neshama itself comes from Kelim, is because your neshama has no shaychas to beater, there's only Kedusha in it. Right? What the pasuk says, "Lifnei Melech Melech V'Geimer," that before the Eibishter created Yidden, there already was Tayu because of a higher shadish. V'Hainu time, this also explains Shahadum Chai B'Mezenis. Tatzach, we live by eating food from animals, plants, and minerals. Umevaderam b'ma shabei, and we correct them using the neshama, which is Ma. V'Chai B'hem, and we live from them Lefishay Misag. We're able to fix klipa because we ourselves are perfectly fixed. But we need klipa because klipa has a higher sherish and kedusha. So why does a yid need mitzvahs ma'asiyas? And again, we're assuming the question is, l'chayre his neshama comes from kelim, because mitzvahs ma'asiyas are ma'ila biru. That's number one. Ve'edzes is the second reason. And the second reason is the point that I told you in the introduction, that even though neshamas come from kelim, but you cannot be magala the makkah of the kelim of the neshama now. You can only be magala the ma'ila of the ruchnis of the neshama now. And since you can only be magal the ma'al the ruchnis neshama now, it's like teda. It's oil. It's not kelim. The pasuk says a funny layero. You can't see the face of the Eibishter. In other words, the innermost level of the one above, cannot come below. Only the periphery of the higher level, and the back of the higher level, which is simply what falls, what drips down from the higher chachma, that's able to come lamata, right? Moreover, when you speak words of chachma, you're not mamshech etzem. Ideas, words, not mamshech etzem. Varaya, you can't create new mitzvahs. What's the Alter Rebbe saying? The fact that your neshama may be from kelim is immaterial because you can't reveal that. What your neshama could reveal is Ahavas Hashem and Yiras Hashem. What your neshama could reveal is learning chachma of the Eibishter. That's ruchnius. It's a ha'ara. It's not mehus l'mehus. You don't bring down the same godliness in atzilus to asiyah. V'haraya, you can't create. There's no atzmus in Teira and Ahavas Hashem and Yiras Hashem. As opposed to v'hatipa, which goes in the seed, which is, of course, in the mashal, in the nimshal, kelim and mitzvahs, right? Shenimshach me'ah keli de chachmilah, which comes from the keli chachmilah, not from the oyer chachmilah. Now you know and I know that keli is lower than oyer, but you also know that although keli is lower than oyer, keli has the ma'ila of atzmos. Correct? Yesh ba keach hameil, that's the power of giving birth. Umahava yesh ba'ay, to create yesh me'ayin. Moreover, Amshachat Chachmilah Klula, but you actually Mamshech Chachmilah, which L'chayda means the Ein Sof itself. And the reason is through the Kelim, which are represented by the Tipa, you bring out the very essence of Chachmilah, and that's why Dafka through Amshacha Atzmis, which is what a Tipa is, which comes Dafka through a Tipa Gashmis, is the Haylada. So what we see is that in the Keli system, as represented by a physical Tipa, you create the new Metzias. The very essence of the parents come down. You can speak for 1,000 years, you're not going to make no babies. So maybe true that the neshama is kelim also, but the kelim of the neshama is behelim, and that's why every Jew needs to have mitzvahs to be mamshach muslim matzilus. As opposed to when a person speaks or thinks divrei Torah, even if he's creative in wisdom. In some area of wisdom, says the Alter Rebbe, Harei Chachma zu is like a whatever in Yonam of Alakus you're going to have through Ruchnius, either to Ahavas Hashem and Yiras Hashem, or through Chachma, there's only going to be a ray of light, Mispashetas, which is expanding. From the essence of the neshama and its essence, but it's not going to be the mehus lemehus of the neshama itself. And this light is like lavush, is only a garment to the essence of the seichel. V'haseichel and the seichel b'chlal is ha'ara lavush lemehus nefesh, is further a lavush. So in other words, the neshama may be in essence, but since the essence of the neshama can't be revealed, only the lights of the neshama are in essence. So anything the neshama by itself is going to have is going to be only ruchnius, and therefore neshama has to have mitzvahs. And again, even though the neshama itself comes from kelim, mashenkin atipa, opposed to the seed, which is of course represented in the mashal, in the nimshal by mitzvahs. Nimshach ba gam musa nefesh vatzmusa. It brings the very essence of the soul, hamalobach is meichem, which is in the brain, and it manifests in the physical child. First of all, the physical seed, not the physical child, but which is why it produces b'dei malamamish. Says that, but to be honest, and that's the difference between malachim do hayetzim and shikim, which come from a kiss, la neshama hayetzim hakem, and the shamas that come from kelim. The truth of the matter is the shamas that come from kelim. Malachim are ruchnius, malachim are seichel and midas. Neshamas have an etzem. So if the shamas have an etzem, so why do I have to have mitzvahs? I have my own etzem. So the answer is, I may have an etzem, but I can't reveal that etzem. This one line, I don't know why the Alter Rebbe put it here. The Chayli should have put it in his Akdama, as part of his kasha. He's talking about the shamas Yisrael, the shamas that come from etzem, so why do you have to have Tatum? I don't know why the Alter Rebbe puts it here. But the bottom line is, even though the shama comes from etzem, it can't reveal that etzem. We can argue about that. Now goes point 3. Moreover, hakelim da atzilus, the vessels of atzilus, nasu neshama lebiyah, become ruchnius and biyah. In other words, when you learn Torah, not ali b'dehilchas, and when you have avos Hashem and yiras Hashem, you're bringing down takaf matzilus into bria. But as it goes from matzilus to bria, it's changing. Vilkach, and therefore the chilu rachim usichliim, your yir and av, which comes from the seichel, hein kemalachim. You're like a malach when you're having avos Hashem and yiras Hashem. The neshikin, whose mitzias comes from a kiss, because it's meha'adas chitzenius the Chabad b'biyah. It's only a ray of light from the periphery of Chabad, which is in biyah. Because it's ruchnius. V'atam, and the reason is mishum the pnimi is Chabad, the inner dimension of Chabad. Umhusev atzmut shel pnimi, the very essence of the pnimi, which is represented by kelim. Eina yochal is galus, is not revealed. Ele de ha'adas kelim dafka. Only when it's passing through the kelim system and not the air system. Because kelim operate a yedim lamata katipas adim mechem. Because kelim come down like a seed. So in ruchnius you can't have panim. In Torah and in avos Hashem you can't have panim. You can only have it mitzvahs. And although a neshama comes from kelim, since the way the neshama functions, its function is only in the realm of oid and ruchnius, the neshama has to have mitzvahs. Now you could say to me that what I said as point 2 and point 3 is really one akudah. It is more or less 1 point. I broke it up into 2. I don't know, maybe because I put the malachim and the neshamas in the middle. But we're talking about the mila of mitzvahs over neshamas Yisrael. Number 1, birurim, and number 2, since we can't be megal the atzmos of a keli of the neshama right now, so all you can reveal is the ruchnius, whether it's seichel or it's midas, and therefore it's not amshach muslim, it's only a ha'ara. And tomorrow's shir or bar mikol brings another point, and that is that when you do mitzvahs maisias, you're bringing down alakus. And to avos Hashem and yiras Hashem, you're only going up. And that's the 4th point of why, even though a neshama comes from kelim, has to have mitzvahs.